Welcome, SENS Talk.
Russell winds in, feeds it back across the strike, and scores! Brady Tkachuk makes it 2-0. Claude Giroux, hit along, scores!
Tim Stutzock cross, Tkachuk score! The captain, Brady Tkachuk, buries it with 1:18 to go.
See you later. Go, SENS, go. Welcome to SENS Talk. My name is Brandon Plant, and I am your host. The news we've been waiting for literally over a decade appears to be here, as the Ottawa Senators and the National Capital Commission yesterday announced an agreement in principle to build the SENS new arena at Lebreton Flats. That's right. The saga appears to finally be over. In this video, I'm going to break down what happened in the negotiations, what the two sides agreed on, and what the next steps are. But the big news here is it's an agreement in principle, with this transaction set to be finalized in 1 year at quote-unquote fair market value, according to NCC CEO Toby Nosbaum. So the SENS will own the land, they will not be leasing the land, and that is very, very key to this entire transaction. Now, I know there's a lot of people that are concerned about the quote-unquote agreement in principle. What does that mean? It sounds like the memorandum of understanding that the SENS had with the NCC before. I understand why, especially with the history of this Lebreton Flats project here in Ottawa with the SENS organization. I understand the concern. Let me address this right at the front. Don't be. No reason to be concerned, in my opinion, because this really just feels different, and both sides are saying exactly that. For example, Nosbaum of the NCC said a key difference this go around was new ownership. So clearly, the new owner, Michael Anlow, is much more willing and much more flexible to get this project done, and clearly wants to get this project done. While Cyril Leader also said, we're in a position now where everyone wants this to happen. So it seems to be not a if, but a when. And when is, well, the next year will be interesting, and we're going to get into that in this video. There's a lot of battles about to take place here at the municipal and I guess provincial and federal levels in terms of politics, because the debate's going to begin for funding, whether private money should be the only funding used for the arena, or should some taxpayer funds be used as well. That's going to be let's call it a debate. It's going to be a debate for the next year for sure, before the deal is set to be finalized, like I said, within the next year or so, probably at the end of the next year. So by 2025, the SENS and the NCC should have a finalized transaction with a firm dollar figure. Now, again, there's no firm dollar figure at this moment. All we know is fair market value is what the two sides are going to agree upon. So, for example, Cyril Leader in the past has said that the project, and this is just an estimate from a while ago before any new arena plans, and we'll get to that because there's going to be more land available now as part of this agreement. But Cyril Leader in the past has said that roughly $1.2 to $1.5 billion will be needed for this project. Now, I do want to point out, however, that was said before this agreement was finalized. So, obviously I can't imagine that number will go down, but it could increase. It could increase with the increase, of course, of the land that the SENS are going to be getting, or buying, I should say, from the NCC. That land, originally the NCC only wanted to give about 6 acres of land. They ultimately settled with the Ottawa Senators at just over 10 acres. And just for context, the Canadian Tire, the entire complex right now at the Canadian Tire Centre, including parking, is 75 plus acres of land. So a massive difference, of course, but that few extra acres of land was a key sticking point in these negotiations, primarily because of parking and the need for parking space, of course, for fans and just for general people in the area. It's not just going to be an arena, of course. There's going to be an entire complex with bars, restaurants, stores, housing, etc. So you need that parking space, and kind of like Lebreton Flats, I would imagine, I'm no architect, I would imagine it will be an underground parking situation. There's a lot of limited space at Lebreton Flats. A lot is going into this project. They want a lot of green space as well. So I would imagine that it's going to be an underground parking situation, which makes sense. And I'll just talk about this quickly. Michael Anlow today spoke about the fact that he believes that within 5 years or so, the LRT line here in Ottawa will be sorted out and will be good to go and will be running smoothly. I wish I was as confident as Michael Anlow is in that. However, that is what he said. He feels that it should be good to go within 5 years. But again, he wanted more parking just in case. And that makes sense. You don't want to rely on somebody else to get fans into your arena. You want to secure your own fate, so to speak, right? And again, it's pretty insane to even think about the fact that the NCC didn't want the SENS to have any parking space. They didn't want any parking space. That was what Anlow said today in negotiations. They said they didn't want any parking space. And I can't imagine 16, 17, 18,000 people on a Monday or Tuesday night in February only taking the LRT with no parking. Have you seen the roads in that area as well? 1 lane, 2 lanes? That's ridiculous. So no wonder this negotiation's been going on for years and years and years. That's insane, and I'm glad that they worked out a deal that can allow the SENS to build adequate parking, because they desperately will need it, regardless of what's going on with the LRT. But of course, a functioning LRT is something we're all praying for. Now back to the actual agreement itself, not just the semantics around it. So again, the land will be entirely owned by the Ottawa Senators, all 10 plus acres of it. And this is where we get into the fun part, as I kind of mentioned a couple minutes ago, the funding. Where is the funding? Where is the money going to be coming from? Is it going to be coming from you and I? Is it going to be coming from Mikey A entirely? Is it going to be a mix of the both? In my opinion, it's going to be a mix of the both. But according to President Cyril Leader and owner Michael Anlow of the Ottawa Senators, they say no taxpayer funds will be used on this project. I can't see that happening. You know what? I am a big SENS fan, you can obviously tell, but I am going to be clear-cut and honest with you guys, as I always am. No matter how much I love the team and I'm a fan of the team, most importantly, I'm somebody that's giving you the news. And if I'm giving you the news, I'm going to give you the honest truth, not what I want or what they want you to hear. I'm going to give you the truth. And the truth, very simply, is maybe it happens. Yeah, maybe the SENS find a way to make this arena and build it and the entire project of probably over $1.5 billion without taxpayer funds, but I can't see that happening. Look, we've heard for the last few months, we've heard for the last few years that 3 levels of government would be needed to, help this project go through. The federal, municipal, and of course provincial. All those governments would be involved in this project. So again, if they're involved, that means taxpayer funds are involved. I'm not going to let, the SENS organization or the NCC or anyone let you think that the government being involved doesn't mean your taxpayer funds will be involved. They will be. Who do you think the government gets their money from, right? So I'm not buying that. And again, I'm being skeptical, as I should be. However, what I will say is they will own the land, and you never know. Maybe it will be entirely financed privately. I just can't see that happening. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing for the project to be partially funded by the taxpayer. I think there's a lot of economic positivity that can come out of this for the downtown core of Ottawa and for a key city here in Ontario and in the nation of Canada. We are the capital of Canada, and that definitely changes things when it comes to funding. You want to make your capital city a destination to go to. So again, I'm not completely on one side or the other. I'm in the middle. I think if the government and the SENS organization could come to an agreement that works for both sides, that allows the project to be funded properly so it can go ahead with no issues whatsoever. But then on top of that, it's not just a blank check either, and the taxpayer dollars aren't just being thrown away like it's nothing. We have to have respect for the taxpayer, and we also have to ensure that the project goes ahead without any major bumps. So again, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I know that's a very controversial topic. I know there's a lot of opinions on the issue. I don't agree with one side or the other. I'm in the middle. Again, I can see the benefit for the city. It just has to make sense for the taxpayer, most importantly. I'm a SENS fan, but at the same time, I don't want the city being bankrupt for years and decades to come. Just look at Montreal with Olympic Stadium, for example. I don't want that for my city, but I also want a premier destination for my city downtown that will bring major attractions, will bring, an arena downtown, and will provide an economic boost for the city. I think you can be on both sides of this issue, and I think and I hope that is what the case is going to be. And frankly, I'm pretty positive of where this is going to go with the SENS and, the government's involved and whatnot. Because while I'm not buying that the taxpayer will not be involved in this project whatsoever, and again, I'm here as somebody that's delivering the news to you first, not as a SENS fan. I'm going to always be honest with you and call it as it is. But I'm also not saying that Michael Anlow is going to take the taxpayer to the cleaner. I think it's going to be the opposite of that. And it really shows the difference of philosophy between the previous ownership and this ownership, because, Michael Anlow, in his press conference, or his media scrum today, I should say, mentioned how he's not looking for a money grab, and he emphasized the importance of ensuring the game day experience is not only affordable, but sustainable. He said, and I quote, "I also don't want our fans to be paying $200 for a ticket, $30 for a beer, and $50 for parking." So, look, You can call that what it is. You can say that he's just doing that to get on the good side and get good PR. Don't care. Because in my opinion, he didn't have to say that. He had no reason to say that. He chose to say it because he wants to assure the SENS fans and the community at large that this is not going to be something where we pay hundreds of millions of dollars into, and we also have to spend nearly $400 or $500 per night or per game to go to a game. He wants to make sure that, this is an affordable experience for Sens fans and a sustainable project and a long-term destination for the Ottawa Senators, and that's the right approach. Again, if you look at polls, there was a flash poll from CTV last night online. It was like an online poll. Just under 900 votes, and 85% of the voters said no, they do not want public money being used to finance an arena for the Ottawa Senators. So obviously the Ottawa Senators know that the public is not necessarily on the side of taxpayer funds being used for a project like this. That is a short, small sample size, 900 people, but it gives you a good glimpse that definitely the majority of Ottawans are not pro taxpayer funds being used for the development of the arena. So they're probably trying to play both sides here and ensure that they don't lose this debate before it even begins. And let me just say this again. The Sens own the land. It's not entirely impossible that this is going to be privately funded, but considering the fact that the parcel of land is right next to a bunch of federally owned land that's going to get a big boost of federal funds to be put into those projects, I can't see the Sens just being like, we don't want any of that money. I just can't see that. So we'll see what happens. Maybe something like Calgary or Edmonton happens here as well. But what it really comes down to is they're not trying to take the taxpayer to the cleaner, kind of like what happened with Montreal during the Olympics a few decades ago. And I think that's the right thing, and I think hopefully this will work out. This could be a very contentious debate, no doubt about it. And again, as I already said, comment below and let me know what you think. I don't even know if my opinion is popular. I think my opinion is just kind of in the middle where I understand both sides, but I just want to make sure, most importantly, that the taxpayer and their money is respected. So that's enough about that. We can go on for days about that, frankly. But that will be very interesting to follow over the next year before this transaction is finalized. Now, a couple of key things before I wrap up the video. The soil on the property is contaminated. Cyril Leader in his press conference yesterday said there is contaminated soil. That is part of their business agreement between the SENS org and the NCC. That has to get cleaned up, and they will be working that out. So we'll see what happens with that. That will cost a lot of money. Cyril Leader also mentioned there will have to be studies being done on the soil itself to see the severity of the contamination. So that's a lot of money right there. So this is what I mean. I don't expect the Sens, nor should they have to, pay entirely for, if not at all, frankly, for the contaminated soil. They'll probably have to put a little bit of the money into that, but that should be the government. They made that mistake. They let it sit there for decades. They should clean it up, not the private sector. But when you look at the arena, maybe the private sector should be involved in that. So this is what I mean. It's going to be a give and take. It's not going to be entirely one way or the other, but that is something to definitely keep in mind. And the last thing I will say is, in terms of the timeline of the Canadian Tire Center, what happens with that after. No plans yet for the organization have been formalized for what happens with the Canadian Tire Center after they move to the Lebreton Flats site. However, the organization has spoken to city councillors in the area and, Mark Sutcliffe, the mayor, about the importance of the site and its usage afterwards. So clearly something will be used. Maybe they make it a mall, kind of like what, in Montreal they did with the Forum, for example. We'll see what happens. They have Tanger right there, so maybe they turn that into a little duplex of shops and hotels and whatnot. Who knows? It's a big parcel of land, and there's a lot of potential there for a growing community in Canada. And again, last thing, in terms of the timeline, Anlow hasn't given a firm timeline. He said ideally in 5 years, that this arena would be built, but that's just a hope, not an estimation, and he emphasized that. So this could be upwards of 5+ years at the very least. So we're definitely going to be in the Canadian Tire Center for the next 5 years for sure. And the last thing is Michael Anlow mentioned today that the Videotron Arena in Quebec City, where the Quebec Remparts play of the QMJHL, is a model arena that, frankly, if he could pick it up and put it at Lebreton Flats, he would, he said. So that's all the news we have right now. There's a lot to digest, primarily just the funding. Again, majority of Ottawans, it appears, don't support funding the arena. So will the Sens come up with an agreement that, has partial funding from the arena, or will be entirely privately funded and the public funding will come for the soil contamination. Who knows? That debate will absolutely rage on. It frankly already has started to rage on in the coming months. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm sure it's going to get spicy and I'm looking forward to that. I'm open to all opinions. So thank you all so very much for watching. I'll see you all soon. Go Sens go.